Here we go, buddy. Here we go, buddy. Here we go. God forgive me, I love the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. There's a lot of things in them that make me constantly go, why are they like that? But I pretty much enjoy myself every time I watch them. And I should know, because I've seen them a lot. I watched the first movie in theaters like 3 times. I watched the second movie in theaters like 6 or 7 times. I'm kind of the friend amongst my friend group that loves Sonic. So all of them basically individually asked me, hey, Hannah, do you want to go watch the Sonic movie with me in theaters? And I said yes every time. Because I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm basically a lifelong fan at this point. But something about these movies is that they're deeply weird in a way that the games aren't. Like, don't get me wrong, the games are very weird.
Just what do you think you're doing here?
Who's this broad?
And a lot of that carries over into the movies, but they make a lot of choices to kind of separate itself from the game series, but also to kind of make the games work in this new medium. Obviously, when translating from one medium to another, there's going to be changes. That's just kind of a fact of the thing. And I'm not someone who's opposed to changes, but I am very curious as to why they made the choices that they did. Why did they make the changes that they did? What went into these changes? What were the narrative devices at play? And what does it tell us about the ways that we translate video games into other forms of media? And that's what I hope to unpack today. Going into this video, I'm going to be assuming that you've seen the movie, so spoilers ahead. I'm not going through point by point by point by point. We don't have time for that. My last 2 videos were over 4 hours long each. I need a break. I'm going to talk a bit more about movie 2 and 3 than I am about movie 1, but of course, movie 1 set off this trilogy, and so I need to talk about some of the base choices they made that defined the movies as what they are compared to the games. Also, this isn't going to be a summary or a review of the movies. If you want a summary, go to Wikipedia. If you want a review, I think they're pretty good. A lot of problems, but I like them anyways. There you go, that's my review. Second of all, you're not gonna need to know the plots of every single game for this video to make sense, and where necessary, I'll weigh in with some explanation of character backstories, especially where it pertains to a conversation about how that backstory was changed in the movie. I assume that a lot of y'all know the broad points of the series already, but I'll define some points and some character backstories for the neurotypicals in the audience. Don't worry, I got you. If you want an entire video essay explaining the Sonic the Hedgehog video game lore, those already exist. I'll link 1 or 2 or 3 in the description down below. I'll just put some of my favorites down there. But it's not gonna be necessary viewing, okay? Oh my god, this hat, like, the ears are folded, like, ugh, this hat looks stupid. There, much better. So I've made a helpful little board here to help guide us through this narrative, but I want to begin even before the first movie came out, when the initial trailer came out. That's right, we gotta talk about Rat Boy. So his name isn't really Rat Boy, but that's what I've been calling him. I'm gonna be honest, I kinda love Rat Boy. I didn't hate him nearly as much as the rest of the internet. Did I think he looked good? God, no, he looked like shit. But I don't know, he kind of grew on me, especially when everyone started hating on the design. I don't know, if anyone knows where I can find a, Rat Boy Sonic plush, please let me know, because I'll buy 50 of them. I love this scrumbly little son of a bitch. For those of you who don't know this element of fandom history, when the first trailer came out to the tune of Gangsta's Paradise, frankly, fucking amazing song choice if you ask me, everyone lost their collective minds, including me. But who can blame us? He has human teeth. Everyone made such a massive stink about changing the design that the team actually ended up changing it into something more, palatable to the eyes. On one hand, we can look at this as a positive, because the movie studio was responding to what fans wanted, and it definitely set a precedent in the fans' eyes of, oh, this movie is made for us. On the other hand, that might not be a completely good thing. Because when art is made specifically to appease the masses, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a precedent we should necessarily set for artists. One could argue that while the changed design is 1000% an improvement, this is not something that should always be demanded of artistic teams, especially not in the final hours of production. But I don't know, I'm just speaking from the perspective of an artist, and as someone who thinks maybe mass appeal shouldn't be the primary goal of good art and good cinema, but also, I don't know, this is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Maybe a conversation about cinema doesn't apply. I'm okay with designs being weird as long as the movie was written well and animated well. Do I think this was a good change? Yes, obviously. But it does set this very weird tone and this very weird level of expectations going in. You want the movie to be good because they went through all the effort and all of the money to change the design before it even came out. I mean, God, that's gotta be some kind of crunch. I distinctly remember that there was a group of fans who claimed that the reason the original design was so bad was to garner the attention of changing it, but I think this is obviously not true. If this is a publicity stunt, this is such an expensive publicity stunt. They would have spent so much money making this fake trailer with the bad design. Guys, this conspiracy theory is very misguided. Then there's also the casting. So we have James Marsden here, and he is cast as Sonic's cop dad. His name is Tom Wachowski. He's a sheriff in the town of Green Hill, Montana. And, he's just some guy. So, okay, we have like a straight man character meant for Sonic to bounce off of. Sounds good. Meanwhile, we also have Jim Carrey. So, Jim Carrey is cast as Dr. Eggman, and this causes a whole bunch of ripple effects that we'll go into later, but I do think it's very interesting casting, and it wasn't casting that I was angry about at the time. The only other bit of, I guess, prefacing and fandom history that you need before going in is where the Sonic games were at as far as the public standing. Since the mid-2000s, Sonic's reputation hasn't been the best. I think even people who don't play video games know how badly received Sonic 06 was. I want to say for the record that I'm not going to be shitting on Sonic 06 in this video. Like, I could do the thing where I'm like, Sonic 06 was bad. But one, like, there are people who like the game and I'm not here to shit on them. And two, there are parts of the game that I genuinely think are good. Like, I still defend Shadow's arc, like the way Shadow's story was written.
Why risk your life for those who will persecute you later?
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
There's something about that gets me. But I guess what I really want to say is that the Sonic games standing in the video gaming world wasn't as prestigious as it was by the time the 90s and early 2000s rolled around. Outside of the video games, different forms of media like comics and TV shows tend to be written, I'd say, pretty well. Especially the IDW Sonic comics, those are really good. And Sonic Boom as a series was a big departure from the characterization of the video games, but I liked it a lot. I thought it was well written. I don't think the video games were good, the Sonic Boom video games, but I think the Sonic Boom series was pretty decent. But all of that wasn't enough to really undo the harm that had been done in the mid-2000s to the Sonic brand reputation. Not to mention, video game movies as a whole just aren't perceived as good. They usually end up doing really badly. Audiences who like the games end up not relating to the movies because they changed everything. And audiences that don't know anything about the games don't like the movies because they don't know anything about these characters and they don't give a fuck. So it's a very lose-lose situation. Now, I've been a Sonic fan since I was 10 years old. I've always loved this boy. So I was really anxious going in. I kind of figured that it would flop no matter what, but I was very much dedicated to watching it multiple times because this movie was going to be a box office success if I had anything to do with it. Okay, you're all caught up. Let's get ready to watch the movie. The movie begins with a very, very cute, very well redesigned Sonic the Hedgehog running around Green Hill Zone. The first inciting incident comes in the form of the Echidna tribe attacking. We'll go more into the Echidna tribe and what they're like in the games versus how they are in the movies because Sonic 2 delves way deeper into that. But I guess all you need to know is that the Echidna tribe is a group of echidnas, the Australian animal. it's furry media. I don't know what you want from me. That within the game's media protects something called the Master Emerald, which is a super powerful gem that grants all kinds of powers. The echidnas all across any kind of Sonic media have either been indigenous coded, like maybe Aztec or Mayan coded, or African coded, or some combination of the two. And like this coding really isn't up for debate. Like you see Mayan and Aztec architecture when we're talking about the echidnas. We see African styling in their clothing and in their jewelry and in their accessories. Knuckles is black. And I know you might be thinking, oh, he's red. He's a red echidna. He's black. All of his music is based on R&B and hip hop and rap. Knuckles' color scheme was based on the Rastafarian flag, and in the Sonic and Knuckles strategy guide, his dialogue is written with a Jamaican accent. I'll link that down below because sometimes people want to pretend that this isn't real, but no, it's real. It's said that Knuckles' prototype name was Dreads, and early art shows his hair much more closely resembling locks, which is obviously a traditionally black hairstyle. This early document is actually referenced in the movie because at the end of Sonic 2, Knuckles mentions liking grapes. Knuckles' fighting style is boxing, which especially in the 90s was correlated with black stereotypes. And I've seen some fandom conversations about how fabrics used in other echidna designs closely resemble African kente cloth, but that's up for debate. He is in fact black. So let's just call the echidnas Afro-Indigenous just to make things simple for this video. Anyways, they violently attack Sonic and his owl mom when Sonic is just a baby. Oh fuck, I should probably explain owl mom. This is Sonic's owl mom, also known as Longclaw. I'm probably going to be calling her owl mom for the rest of this video because that's what I remember her as. Those of you who know literally nothing about the Sonic the Hedgehog games might be going, oh man, I had no idea that Sonic's mom was an owl, that's interesting. To which I would answer, she's not. As far as I'm concerned, Sonic's real mom is Queen Alina of Mobius. She's leaving cryptic messages for Sonic and his brother Manic and his sister Sonia and their punk rock band to travel across the universe and find her.
I long for my children, but I have to wait. To act too soon could seal their fate.
They made a vow their mother will be found. Sonic Underground!
This also isn't canon. But my point is that Owl Mom she's not an established character. She's someone at Paramount's OC. I'm fine with it, I guess. You know, I thought long and hard about why they created this mom character, who, by the way, dies in the first 10 minutes. The echidnas fucking murk her. But, like, why would the filmmakers create this character? So, one thing that comes to mind is that they want to give him some sad beginnings. It's like any shonen protagonist with a dead anime mom. Moms die a lot in anime. It's a very easy go-to backstory trope. But then the question is, why an owl and why not, like, a hedgehog? And while this does come into play more into Sonic 2, I feel like a lot of Sonic 2 wasn't written by the time Sonic 1 was done. So my guess is that they didn't want to make it so similar to something else. Like, they don't want comparisons between Owl Mom and Queen Alana or Sonic's mom in the Archie comics or anything like that. I think they want to make something so unique that we don't make those comparisons. I'll also note that Owl Mom's style is very, I think, incongruent with the rest of the movie. Is a bit more realistic in a way that kind of unsettles me personally. I feel like Owl Mom was designed alongside Rat Boy. And because Owl Mom and Rat Boy were kind of designed with the same style in mind, even though they had a lot of time and resources, or at least as much time and resources as they had to fix Sonic, they couldn't really spare those for Owl Mom, and so Owl Mom just doesn't really get that treatment. She doesn't really get revamped to match the new style from Sonic. But it doesn't really matter because she's dead in like 10 minutes, like I said. Not even 10 minutes, I think it's like 3 solid minutes of knowing Owl Mom. In her dying act, she gives Sonic this bag of gold rings that I guess become portals. I guess they're like symbolic of the special rings, or I don't know, maybe like the end stage ring? I don't know. But like, he gets these rings and he's able to go through it and he goes to Earth, presumably leaving his Owl Mom behind to be murdered in cold blood by the Echidna tribe for no reason other than having an adorable baby hedgehog. At least that's what we think by the end of movie 1. Like, again, they don't go into the Echidna's whole vibe or their motivations until movie 2. So I'm ending movie 1 going like, why did they even do that? What was even the fucking point? We're gonna put a pin in that. More on that later. R.I.P. Owl Mom, we barely knew you. Now we get to know Sonic in Earth and what his character is like. So, Sonic in the games is like this freedom fighter. He's constantly on the run, constantly helping people, and he can't really do that for this version of Sonic. This version of Sonic is a hyperactive 12-year-old with ADHD. I love him with all my heart, and I will die protecting him. This version of Sonic makes like a ton of pop culture references all the time.
I feel just like Vin Diesel. It's all about family, Tom.
Non-stop. And it's gonna annoy a lot of people. And at some points it gets a little bit grating. Sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe you can be quiet just like for 1 minute, just give us a break. But at the same time, it doesn't bother me as much as when other, I don't know what to call this genre of character, CGI animals or creatures hanging around a human character, whatever you call that flavor of character, I don't mind it as much as when they make pop culture references. Because at least in Sonic's arc in this movie, he's existed in our world for years, only engaging with people through media that he watches through their windows, watching Speed through someone's window.
Yes, Keanu! You are a national treasure.
He hangs out outside a cop dad's house watching movies on his TV. And given the fact that he knows how to floss, he's probably watching some kid play Fortnite.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my live stream. Today we're destroying robots.
I am a flossing defender. So, Sonic raises himself as a feral child in the woods living in a cave. He's not really seen by the locals except for this one guy who calls him the Blue Devil. Sonic is a cryptid. I kind of love it.
I know you're out there, and I know you're real.
No, I'm not.
He's like Blue Baby Mothman. And after kind of establishing what Sonic is like, we get to know Tom a bit more. So, Tom is the local sheriff living in Green Hill, a small town in Montana. And he really wants to be a cop in the big city in San Francisco.
I'm gonna move to San Francisco, become a street cop. And, I don't know, see if I have what it takes. What?
We're gonna put a pin in that. It's interesting that it's San Francisco because the levels in Sonic Adventure 2, Central City, is actually based on San Francisco. I mean, look at this. This is San Francisco, basically straight up. Shadow the Hedgehog slides down the Golden Gate Bridge in this game. And you know the song Escape from the City? They're talking about all the pride flags, I think. I headcanon that they're talking about the pride flags in San Francisco. Gayest city in the United States. Next scene we get is one showing that Sonic is like a deeply lonely kid. He doesn't have any friends. Like I said, he can't really be a freedom fighter in this movie, so they gotta give him some other motivation. One that will be more accessible to like the average audience. And I think this is actually a good change. Because Sonic, his cocky, freedom-fighting, loud, exuberant self, he can be a bit much if you're not used to him. But you know who everyone can relate to is an underdog. Someone who's sad, someone who wants friends. Like, Sonic in the games, even through all of his trials and tribulations, isn't really an underdog character. Hell, in Sonic Forces, I think he gets tortured for a year, and he's fine.
My spy there says he's in a solitary confinement cell, and they've been torturing him for months.
None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
You worry too much. Look, I'm perfectly fine.
A lot of the games, especially in the 2010s era, kind of assume that the gamers already know who Sonic is, but this movie can't make the same assumption. Parents are gonna bring their 6-year-olds to watch Sonic the Hedgehog, and they don't know his whole deal. So starting with an underdog character base, I think is probably the smartest move here. And also, the plot about Sonic wanting friends makes sense to me. I mean, Sonic's a social guy in every iteration. He doesn't have anxiety. So he runs around this diamond, and it's so fast that it makes a sonic boom, and the sonic boom, I guess, alerts the government. And you know who works for the government? Dr. Eggman. Eggman in this movie is so deeply fucking weird. Jim Carrey, I think, was allowed to just do whatever he does. Eggman in this movie is completely unrecognizable to his in-game counterpart, and I think that's a pretty smart move. Like I said, the moms and dads don't necessarily know who Eggman is when they're bringing in their kids. And they really began with a base of every character that Jim Carrey does ever. Jim Carrey is a pretty popular character actor. I think he's an acquired taste. Like, I don't think Jim Carrey's whole deal appeals to me personally, but I can't deny that the kinds of comedy that he does very well. It's very physical comedy. It's, the voice that he does. Like, it's something that I don't think a lot of other actors can emulate. My man Jim Carrey is Jim Carreying all over the place, and if you love Jim Carrey, you're gonna love to see Jim Carrey as Eggman. But why did they make Eggman so deeply weird? He refers to his robots as coming out of his egg sack.
Level. Have you finished Charlotte's Web yet? Spoiler alert, she dies in the end, but she leaves a big creepy egg sack.
Ah, my babies.
Ooh, look what came out of my egg sack.
He has this exchange with Tom about being breastfed.
But the reality is, I surpassed everything you're ever going to do. Before I was a toddler, I was spitting out formulas while you were still spitting up formula. I was breastfed, actually. Nice. Rub that in my orphan face.
Actually, you know what? Rewatching that scene, I actually think Tom is the weird one. Actually, I was breastfed. Who tells a stranger that information? Weird flex, Tom, but okay. But Eggman is kind of seen as the weird one. Like, even the other government agents, when they have to talk to him, are like, ugh, this guy. Well, everyone except for Stone, but we'll get to Stone later. The thing about Eggman's weirdness is that it does work in this movie, and I was racking my brain for why, and I think I come to realize that they have a lot more leeway with Eggman than they do other characters. Eggman's characterization in the Sonic games isn't really consistent. I don't think that's something a lot of people would argue with me on. Sometimes Eggman is treated as a real threat. Sometimes he's treated as comic relief. Sometimes he's treated as silly. Sometimes he's treated as serious. Sometimes he's the dictator torturing Sonic, and sometimes he's the bumbling oaf. I think that because his characterization isn't as, I guess, beloved by the fandom as Sonic's, and also because Sega is kind of a bit fast and loose with it, there's more leeway to do something deeply strange like this than there is with, say, another character. Like, let's say it was Tails. Tails, who has been pretty consistently characterized throughout the Sonic games as having a big brain and a big heart and being the little brother character. I think we would all react a lot stronger if Tails, say, had a conversation with Cop Dad about how he wishes he was breastfed. So the cops invade Sonic's cave, and he runs out, and he goes to Tom's house, and Tom accidentally shoots him with a tranquilizer gun.
Ow! I shouldn't even be on this planet right now, but I am. Why? Because you shot me.
I know.
You shot me!
All right, I heard you the first time. You don't have to pile it on. Good grief.
Man, they're carrying over the theme of Sonic being mistreated by the cops. We love canon compliance.
Relax. I'm a cop, okay? Plus, he likes it in there, don't you, buddy?
Why would I like it in here? This is worse than the dog cage you had me in earlier.
So Sonic's like, I need to get to San Francisco because they opened a portal to San Francisco when Sonic was being shot with a tranquilizer gun. It doesn't matter. But Tom is like, well, why don't you just run there? And Sonic's like, well, I don't know which way it is. And Tom goes, go west. And Sonic runs into the ocean. And if I wanted to be an asshole, I could be like, actually, Sonic could use a GPS, or Sonic can read a map, or Sonic can read the signs on the freeway. But who am I kidding? We all know Sonic can't read. And so the movie becomes a road trip movie. Or like a buddy cop movie or something. And it's very surreal, but I really enjoy it. It's incredibly cheesy. Let's see, I'm gonna try to speed run through this. So I think the scene at the biker bar was really solid. What else do I like? I like whatever freak shit Eggman and Stone have going on.
Can we have a moment? Pin yourself to the wall.
Oh my god. And then at the end with this big fight against Eggman, Sonic is like presumed dead, and then Tom says he's his friend.
His name was Sonic.
This was his home.
And he was my friend.
He lives on the power of friendship. This shit is amazing. He is a shonen protagonist. He's just like, man, if only there was like a protagonist from anime that I could compare him to, like a one-to-one comparison. He's just like Naruto. He's exactly like Naruto. I love him. The movie ends with a government agent showing up at their door and giving them a gift card to Olive Garden.
A token of appreciation from your government for keeping quiet about recent incidents which never occurred.
Olive Garden.
Yeah. Have you tried their never-ending pasta bowl?
And this is the funniest shit I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, it's abysmal product placement. Absolutely revolting. I hate to see whatever stage of late-stage capitalism we're in. But as far as product placement goes, I'm kind of glad they were just so direct with it, you know? At least it's a callback. Earlier on in the movie, Tom mentions that the only app he has on his phone is the Olive Garden app. Because when you're here, you're family. Still, I cannot believe that it wasn't a Sonic's deal. Like why didn't they make this deal with Sonic's? The restaurant that sells chili dogs? Sonic's favorite food? Like, it is insane that there wasn't product placement for Sonic's. I don't know why they didn't make that work. I don't know who needs to be fired over that. But still, I don't know. This is wild. Again, I'm not that mad about the product placement. Like, they had to pay for the redesign somehow. If the way that they made this redesign work is by making a deal with the devil, so be it. At the end of the movie, Cop Dad and Maddie adopt Sonic. He sleeps in their attic in a race car bed. He's basically their baby boy now. And me and my friends go to Olive Garden. What can I say? I was just in the mood for their 5-cheese ziti. And with that endless soup, salad, and breadsticks deal, who can blame me? That chicken gnocchi is worth running around at the speed of sound for. Okay, we did it. We're done with Sonic 1. We're moving on to Sonic 2. I should say going in that Knuckles the Echidna is my favorite Sonic character. So I was very hype when we got the announcement that Knuckles was going to be in this movie. There was a lot of speculation of who would voice him. Like, there were some rumors of it being Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And frankly, I didn't really care that much. I just knew it probably wasn't going to be a white guy. Because again, say it with me, Knuckles is black. I also just didn't think that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson would work. Whenever I picture him in movies, he's like this funny, charming character. And I don't know, man. Knuckles doesn't chuckle. He'd rather flex his muscles. So Sonic 2 basically follows right after Sonic 1. Eggman was banished at the end of Sonic 1 to the Shadow Realm, which is really just, I think, an analog for Mushroom Hill Zone, which is pretty clever because Mushroom Hill Zone is one of the zones in Sonic and Knuckles. And pretty close to the start, we meet our boy Knuckles. So if you read the prequel comics that kind of came out around the same time as this movie, you know that Knuckles has been through it. We'll get more into his backstory later, but he has been traveling on his own. He is the last of the Echidnas, and he doesn't have his Master Emerald to guard. So Knuckles' whole deal in the games is that he's the last of his kind, the last Echidna warrior, and that he guards the Master Emerald on Angel Island, an island that floats in the sky, isolated from all of society. I'm sure it doesn't affect him at all. I bet he's doing great. But by the time we get to this movie, my baby boy has been traveling the multiverse. He's been in gladiator fights. He's traveled all kinds of terrain, trying to find either Sonic or some other clue to the Master Emerald's location. And then, when he meets Eggman, Eggman immediately tricks him. This isn't only exclusive to the movies. In the games, Eggman also has a subplot where he tricks Knuckles into thinking that Sonic is his enemy, when it's really Eggman who's trying to steal the Master Emerald. So, you know, you can kind of already tell that that's kind of the plot through line that they're following for this movie. Aw man, Knuckles, don't fall for it. Jim Carrey and his twink sub are lying to you. It's the oldest trick in the book. I'm gonna say, just like before we dive in, I really love Idris Elba's performance. I really enjoyed it. I thought he did a good job with the direction that he took the character. Something I should note about Knuckles is that even though he's easily tricked and a bit gullible here, Knuckles isn't stupid. He's just, again, spent his entire life isolated. He's not dumb. He's just an orphan. When Sonic 2 begins proper, we get the storyline that Sonic is now a vigilante. I guess this kind of does follow the games. Like, Sonic does just kind of run around stopping Eggman and You know, he's not a cop, he's a freelancer. Also, when he gets back to Green Hill, we find out that he, like, accidentally stole, like, $800. Sonic. He should be in prison for that. We have this scene where Cop Dad takes Sonic fishing because he's concerned about, like, this vigilanteing and it's not good. And he basically gives Sonic, like, this knockoff Spider-Man talk, only it's not with great power comes great responsibility. It's,
trust me when I tell you there will come a time when your powers will be needed. But you don't choose that moment. That moment chooses you.
It's the Walmart Uncle Ben. To which Sonic is like,
you're supposed to be my friend. Stop trying to be my dad.
It's wild to me that Sonic's like, you're not my real dad. Sonic, Habibi, you're sleeping in a race car bed in his attic.
You tucked me in last night.
I feel like I should also say, now as good a time as any, I appreciate what they did with Cop Dad in movie 1. I appreciate that he was like a straight man for Sonic to bounce off of. But by the time we're at movie 2, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, Cop Dad has kind of overstayed his welcome. I'm already sick of this guy's shit. He has the personality of wet cardboard. And again, that's not a dig at the actor. I think James Marsden is talented, probably, but like, he must be being directed to act this way because it is not good.
Until your moment arrives, I want you to work on being a little more responsible.
I can't stand this delivery. I don't know, it irks me. It's so, it's giving sitcom very special moment. It's giving sad music is playing on Full House. So, next scene, Maddie and Tom are about to go to, like, her sister's wedding in Hawaii. Knuckles and Robotnik attack Sonic. It's a really good fight scene. They do a really good job of making Knuckles feel imposing. I do like that the fight with Knuckles has weight to it. He is actively trying to murder Sonic the Hedgehog. He feels powerful, he feels like a formidable foe, and then Tails shows up and hits Knuckles with a stolen police car. I should say, Colleen O'Shaughnessy does an amazing job as Tails. I love her as Tails. Every performance she does as Tails is iconic. But after the movie ended, me and my friends were in the Olive Garden, as you do, and we were quoting lines from the movie, and we kept saying, "Oh, geez, Sonic!" And then the next day I watched the movie again, because of course I did. Like I said, I watched it 6 or 7 times, and he never says that. It never once leaves his mouth. He just has such oh geez Sonic energy. Tails does have this one line as they're escaping.
Did your butt just turn into a helicopter?
A buttcopter. Oh, only Sonic the Hedgehog could come up with something like that.
No, Tails, I think just about anyone could come up with that. Oof, where's Ian Flynn when you need the guy? It then cuts to Agent Stone making homoerotic latte art.
Doctor.
Oh my god, homophobia is alive and well. I know that at some point we get some pretty egregious, like, 4 Seasons Oahu product placement.
You're at the 4 Seasons Oahu. Have a Mai Tai. Enjoy some time with your wife.
Man, I really could go for a Mai Tai. Do you think there's an Olive Garden near there? While trying to figure out what the Master Emerald is and why Knuckles is trying to kill him, Sonic ends up finding this message from Longclaw. The map leads him to Serbia. In Serbia, they go into this bar, and we learn a bit more about Tails. In the games, he's bullied because he has 2 tails instead of 1, and then Sonic steps in and becomes an older brother figure. In the movies, they make the decision to have Tails already be a fan of Sonic. I guess he started detecting Sonic when Sonic ran around that baseball diamond in movie 1 and went, wow, that's also really strange. He's just like me for real, for real.
Everyone in my village thought my 2 tails were weird.
Hey, I know that feeling.
But then I saw you, the fastest creature in the galaxy. You were weird too, but you were a legend. That made me think maybe being weird isn't so bad.
He basically projected on Sonic the way I project on Stanford Pines. And there's, like, nothing wrong with that. You know, I think there was probably a less clunky way to do it, but at least they work in the mentions of Tails being bullied somehow. I do wish they had more to build this brother relationship on, because Sonic kind of goes from, like, 0 to 100 real quick on the friendship scale, Though I guess he's been alone his whole life, so he's desperate for friends his age, and currently his only friend is a cop. Regardless, they end up following the map that Owl Mom left them to this cave in Serbia. Like, I guess it's an owl temple of some kind, and there's a mural here that gives us the Master Emerald's backstory. Like I said, in the games, the Master Emerald is this big gem that Knuckles guards all the time. It's purposefully esoteric. It's purposefully a bit of a mystery. In the movies, the Master Emerald is instead this item of pure energy, forged by the quote-unquote fearsome warriors known as the Echidna tribe, to be used in battle. The owl mural warns that a single Echidna warrior, if they got a hold of the Master Emerald, could wipe out an entire army, and the owls took it upon themselves to take it away from them because they realized, oh man, no one race or one person should have this power, so instead we'll take it, because we can be trusted to keep it safe.
Believing no one should have such power, an order of heroes recovered the emerald and swore to protect it from evil.
So what this means is that Longclaw, Owl Mom, was part of this race of owl beings who saw that the Echidnas had the Master Emerald and could possibly use it to do some great damage, and said, no, they can't be trusted with this, we're gonna take it. Meaning, the owls stole the Master Emerald, this priceless treasure of a tribe that is famously indigenous and African coded, because they decided that they were just too violent to have it. And as such, they started a whole ass war. Who wrote this shit? The British World History Museum? I will say that the movie goes out of its way to show an Echidna warrior facing off against an army.
A single warrior could defeat entire armies.
That this is an owl temple. Like, this is their mural. They have a vested interest in probably showing the Echidnas as very violent. Probably showing that they would do this. I mean, think of the language used here. They describe the Echidnas as a fearsome tribe of warriors and describe themselves as an order of heroes. But let's take this at face value. Let's say that this mural is correct, and we are supposed to assume that the Echidna are bloodthirsty and they would have destroyed everyone and they shouldn't be trusted with this power. Instead, the owls should be trusted with this power. That doesn't sound right, does it? Like, either the owls are saying this, or the actual movie is saying that the only race in the Sonic franchise that has been consistently indigenous and African coded, or some combination of the two, that race shouldn't be trusted with this power because they're more violent. After all, at this point in the movie franchise, through movie 1 and 2, 100% of the Echidnas we have met have tried to kill our protagonist, including when he was just a little defenseless baby. The vast majority of Echidna representation we have gotten in this movie has attacked Sonic the Hedgehog with arrows and spears. That doesn't sit well with me. That feels like an oopsie. There's probably a couple of you right now typing in the comments about how in Sonic Adventure, the Echidnas are trying to use the Master Emerald for violence, but there are some nuances that strike a clear difference between the way these two media tell the story. So, in the games, the Echidna exists alongside the Master Emerald. They guard it, they protect it, they live alongside the Chow that live alongside the Master Emerald. Chief Pechacamic wanted to use the power of the Master Emerald to expand his Echidna tribe's territory through war. He rallied the Echidna tribe into battling the surrounding clans, and then he attempted to steal the Chaos Emeralds to use their power. This angered the god of the Master Emerald, Chaos. Pechacamic's daughter, Tikal, stood against her father, insisting that they should live in peace. After all, they weren't always just waging war on everyone around them. And in fact, we see characters back 4,000... I need this up here. How else would people know he was breastfed? Chaos started to attack back and was only quelled when Tikal sealed herself and Chaos within the Master Emerald. And then they used the power of the Emerald to raise the island into the sky into what became Angel Island. The remaining Echidnas, who survived the cataclysmic attack of Chaos, were isolated on Angel Island, and their population dwindled down over 4,000 years until there was only Knuckles. Some might say that I'm splitting hairs here because, yeah, in both of these things, the Echidnas are violent, but they're not all violent. And they don't create the Master Emerald to do more violence. The Master Emerald is not a weapon in the games. One chief rose to power and started waging war with everyone around him, but that is a far cry from saying that this is a tribe of fearsome warriors. Not to mention, I know that Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood isn't canon anymore, for reasons that I don't gotta get into, but in that game, before it was decanonized, we find out that one of the tribes that they were going up against was the Nocturnus tribe, which had more advanced technology. And that is why they reached for the Master Emerald. I'm not saying that they should have reached for the Master Emerald, like Pechacomic was definitely like the asshole there, but there's more nuance. I don't need Sonic the Hedgehog 2 to be like an anti-racist leftist piece of media. I know what I'm getting into. Sonic's dad is a cop. I would just hope that a movie released in 2022 does at least a good of a job with this source material as a game that was released in 1998. I'm just speaking as a Middle Eastern person, I don't know. I have issues with a story where an ethnic group is treated as inherently violent and barbaric, and where it's said that they can't be trusted without outside intervention from another group. Maybe it's just me, but it rubs me the wrong way. Ooh, but then Knuckles and Eggman arrived, and we get to my favorite part of the movie. Oh boy! So we find out that even beyond this Master Emerald backstory, Knuckles has a connecting backstory. Essentially, the Echidnas and the Owls finished each other off. These two races do not exist as they once did because of this endless war from way back when the Master Emerald was stolen. Owl Mom, very well, might have been the very last of her kind.
The last of the Owl Warriors had been located. Soon, Longclaw's emerald secrets would be ours.
And we find out that on that fateful day, when Owl Mom and Baby Sonic were running from the Echidna who attacked them that day, she single-handedly killed like the last 20 members of the Echidna race.
Never saw him again.
Longclaw committed a genocide. Presumably with her long claws. And then she, the last of her kind, died in battle.
We both lost everything that day.
And Sonic's really sad about it, but you know what, Sonic? She died doing what she loved. Killing Echidnas. Boy, did she love it. She did it so much that they're all dead now. You don't understand. I watched this movie in theaters so many times, and every time I was baffled that Jeff Fowler, the director of the movies, Jefferson Fowlerton, fucking Jowler Fowler, he made the mind-boggling decision to have the only race that has been consistently black and indigenous coded from the very beginning of the series be genocided by Sonic's mom? And no one talks about this. Why would they do this? The only reason that Knuckles survived, the only reason why Knuckles is still here is because his dad went, hey, listen, son, sit this one out. You're not ready to be genocided with the rest of us. I love Knuckles' dad in this. I wish we got more screen time with this. I remember seeing him on screen and going, wow, Ken Penders is gonna sue the shit out of you guys. Man thinks he owns the concept of echidnas having fathers. My favorite part of the movie is like halfway through, before they crash the wedding of the guy from Criminal Minds, when Sonic and Knuckles face off and have this we're not so different you and I moment. And Knuckles is like, oh man, you don't know what I've been through. I've lost so much. My entire family was genocided. And then Sonic's like, I've also lost so much. My mom died genociding her entire family. He's fine now. He has a cop dad and a race car bed. It's fine. He's doing great. Stick around, Knuckles, and maybe cop dad will adopt you too. And then we'll all go to Olive Garden. After all, when we're there, we're family. I'm making a lot of jokes, but I understand, of course, that Longclaw is only fighting the Echidna in self-defense. Within the story, Longclaw is by all metrics a kind-hearted individual protecting herself and her innocent, defenseless hedgehog baby from people who are attacking her. But why is this the story that the movie is committed to telling? The movie itself is setting up this situation, setting up this story about a mother defending herself against the violent echidnas. Sonic 2 does not care about the echidnas being killed off. The fact that Longclaw is killing off the last surviving echidnas in a generations-long battle is treated like an afterthought. The movie is either apathetic or ignorant of the narrative consequences. And I know some of you are probably typing like, the owls were also all killed off, the owls were also genocided. But there's a couple things here. First of all, we have a connotation in our brains as like an American audience watching this with what it means when an indigenous race is genocided, because that has a real analog, that has a real world example to draw from. And this movie strengthens this comparison by having the Echidna genocide be a result of war, rather than what it is in the games, an incident that boils down to a cataclysmic event, a literal act of God. We have a real world comparison to draw upon for one of those and not for the other. And in the movie's case, they go out of their way to make this war feel at least somewhat justified in the beginning. They show us this mural of the echidnas being super strong and scary and intimidating, and thank God this Order of Heroes shows up, but that only strengthens the connotations more for me, because it makes me think of real-world existing propaganda that colonizers used to paint the indigenous peoples as, inherently barbaric and violent. It strengthens the comparisons more than it should. Instead of making me think of how the owls swooped in and stole their artifacts, it's making me think of how the owls swooped in, stole their artifacts, and then made propaganda to justify it. I know what Sonic 2 is going for. It's going for the story on violence and how endless war only begets more war and violence and how we need to stop the cycle or what fucking ever. But I don't think it does that very successfully. At least not as successfully as the games do. Angel Island floating up into the sky isn't just a cool thing that happens. It is the Echidna putting a stop to this bullshit. But also putting this aside. In Sonic 2, there is conceivably a single Echidna character who dealt the killing blow to Longclaw and who is responsible for the owl race's genocide. I know that logically. But the difference is that we don't have an on-screen beloved character mascot constantly grieving the person who killed off the owls. There isn't a character on screen going, "Oh man, Fred the Echidna, the person who shot Longclaw in the head 20 times. I sure miss him." I mean, Knuckles is sad that his family dies, but it's not brought up nearly as much as Sonic's grief for Longclaw in movie 1, 2, and 3. And that's fine. He's allowed to grieve his dead owl mom. R.I.P. bitch, I wouldn't have it any other way. But it creates this very funny dissonance where Sonic is really sad and talking about Longclaw and being like, Tom, Longclaw was great, just what a solid person. And I'm sitting here watching Sonic, I think there's a group of people that might disagree with you there. Or at least they would if they were still alive. In Sonic 3, he's like, "Do you think Longclaw would be proud of me, Tom?" And I'm watching I don't know, Sonic, there's still at least one Echidna left. The jokes write themselves. This is insane. I don't even think it makes it a bad movie. If anything, it makes it a much funnier viewing experience for me. But boy oh boy, is it a choice. So much of this movie franchise is Sonic talking about how much Owl Mom means to him and how much he misses her, even going into movie 3. A movie where I don't think Knuckles' family is even mentioned once. The movies want to give the Echidna backstory weight, but they don't want to deal with that weight. And they don't want to deal with what it means to Knuckles. And that sucks because there's a lot that we're missing out on, a lot that is present in the games. Knuckles the Echidna was born into a society that was dying out before he even had a chance to get to know it. He presumably had a set of parents who told him about the Master Emerald. And then, presumably when he was at a young age, his parents died. And there was only Knuckles. real weight in the comics and in the subsequent games and the adjacent materials is given to that. Given to the fact that Knuckles not only needs to protect the Master Emerald, but he needs to keep his culture alive. Because when he dies, when he's gone, that's it. There's no one left. This, to me, is on par in tragedy with Shadow's story and Shadow's arc. And the movies don't even seem interested in what that means. They seem so disinterested that they, passively made Sonic's mom be the cause of genocide. And, that's wild to me. Every time I see Owl Mom on screen, I lose my fucking mind. Longclaw sailed the ocean blue in 1492. I don't know what happened next, but we sure do miss her. And yeah, I know some of you guys are probably like, it's a children's movie. Aren't you doing a bit of overthinking for a children's movie? No. Moving on. So, while all this backstory is being revealed, Cop Dad and Maddie are at Rachel's wedding. Rachel is Maddie's sister. She does not like Tom. Honestly, at this point, I get why. Tom had her tied to a chair in Sonic 1.
Maddie, your husband's lost his mind. Okay, use this as an opportunity to leave him. No one would judge you.
Wait, I didn't go over that because it wasn't important to Sonic's journey, but frankly, I wouldn't like this guy either. Also, he's a cop. I want to be clear that I don't only dislike Cop Dad because he's a cop, but it doesn't help. I care about Cop Dad because Sonic cares about Cop Dad, and I care about the things that Sonic cares about. But oh boy, the second Sonic changes his mind about you, you are done, James Marsden. He's at her wedding, she's getting married to the hot guy from Criminal Minds, which frankly, good for her. I cannot tell you how hype I was to see Shamar Moore in this movie. I was like, what? You're here? Shamar Moore is in this movie, Knuckles is in this movie, Shadow is in the end credits of this movie. It's a smorgasbord of characters and people that 12-year-old Hannah had a crush on. We love to see it. But anyway, she's getting married to Morgan, who in this movie is called Randall. I think his last name is Handel also. I think his name is Randall Handel. Let me check that. Oh my god, his name is Randall Handel. That's amazing. At the wedding scene, the actual wedding is happening. Tom has the ring, and he gets a call from Sonic going hey, there's an avalanche in Serbia. I need you to throw this portal ring for us to come through. And he makes the stupid fucking decision to, instead of going up to Rachel and going, hey, the ring on your finger is actually my teleportation ring. This is your actual wedding ring. Instead of just showing her the wedding ring that he was in possession of, I think he, rips it away from her, throws it, and, starts an avalanche. It's so stupid, but whatever, who cares? So, the wedding is ruined, and then Olive Garden guy shows up. And I shit you not, I see this character on screen, I see him and I go, oh my god, it's Olive Garden guy, and then they do this!
It's Mr. and Mrs. Wachowski. Olive Garden guy?
It's amazing. I love this motherfucker. When he's here, he's family. So Olive Garden guy reveals that hot guy from Criminal Minds is actually a government agent. And not only just a government agent who was tricking Rachel into marrying him so that he could investigate her family and find Sonic, but specifically one belonging to the organization GUN, the Guardian Unit of Nations.
G-U-N, seriously?
Gun, yeah.
GUN in the games is an actual entity. It's like the military for the United States. I want to be clear that it is a clear analog to the United States military. The same way that Central City is San Francisco with extra steps, the government of the United Federation, the country that Central City is in, is the one that controls GUN. Commander Walters also specifically says that GUN started about a year ago after the events of movie 1 in San Francisco.
After the events in San Francisco, a global task force was created, devoted to protecting our planet from alien threats. That day, Guardian Units of Nations was born.
We're gonna put a pin in that. Let me just add it to the board. GUN started in movie 1. What follows is an arc in which Sonic and Cop Dad and Tails are wrongfully imprisoned by GUN. They're kept back even though Sonic needs to go to where the Master Emerald is because Knuckles is going to get it, and as such, Eggman is going to get it, because as we know, Eggman is tricking Knuckles. Something notable about Gunn in this movie and the next, and I'll talk more about this later, is that their weapons arsenal is seriously downgraded. Like, I don't think they actually have any real guns. They have tasers.
Hey! Hey! Randall, why do all of your friends have weapons?
I'm trying to remember, but there's not a lot of guns in the scene, and especially none that are fired. I think they do the same thing to Wade, who is like Cop Dad's cop sidekick. I don't think he has a gun. I think he has a taser.
Hands. You got robot hands.
No, they're gloves.
Get them up. Now spread your fingers.
And that strikes me as very, very intentional. In movie 1, Wade had a gun. Hell, he fires a gun at Eggman, point blank. Interestingly, one of these movies was being made before the George Floyd protests of 2020, and one was being made after. Maybe I'm assuming here, but I do wonder if they were concerned about the optics of law enforcement aiming rifles at beloved children's character Sonic the Hedgehog. I wonder if it's also the reason why Cop Dad being a cop is never mentioned these days for some reason. I mean, I can only speak for me and my circle of gay leftists, but I don't think many people were happy about Cop Dad being a cop. Frankly, if you ask me, the story works better with him being a park ranger or something similar. With Rachel and Maddie's help, Sonic is able to escape and he's able to go to the temple where the Master Emerald is being kept. We have this, again, very good fight between Sonic and Knuckles. I cannot emphasize enough how great these fight scenes are. I love them a lot. They're better than basically any in-game cinematic cutscene that we've gotten from the Sonic series, so I love them a lot, okay? And while they're distracted, Eggman goes and grabs the Master Emerald.
You are my friend!
And he says this when he grabs it.
Chaos is power!
Chaos is power is like a reference, I believe, to the prayer poem that the Echidnas have. Like when they invoke the power of the Master Emerald.
Chaos is power enriched by the heart.
So that's cool. I don't know how he knows it, but it doesn't matter. I actually don't have much to say about this end fight, except it's really fucking cool. I love seeing Super Sonic. I love seeing the Sonic Heroes animations. I think this is just so cool. It's very nostalgic. I enjoyed it. The fight is good, and then Eggman is assumed dead by the military. I know I was talking a lot about the Echidna genocide, and I'm worried y'all might think I hate this movie. I want to be clear. I love this movie. Watched it a ton. It's got everything. It's got homoerotic latte art. It's got Super Sonic. It has the Sonic Adventure pose with the tangly limbs. We love to see it. And then, in the end, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are playing baseball, mirroring that scene from Sonic 1 where Sonic was super lonely. It's very cute.
I am having the fun!
They almost forget the Master Emerald. I mean, before Sonic goes back and grabs it.
Oh. Can't forget this.
Which is maddening to me. Knuckles, please, for the love of God, keep track of your ancient family heirloom. It's killing me. And then they run off to this very badly photoshopped in, I don't know, Chevy Tahoe or something. Whatever car sponsored this movie. Look at that. It's like a goddamn commercial. And then we see him in the end credits scene. Shadow the Hedgehog.
My God. Project Shadow.
When I tell you I screamed in the theater. When I tell you I screamed in the theater, most of the times I watched it, I was losing my mind. But I wasn't the only one. The whole audience was going wild. They were going nuts. People were screaming and they didn't know who the fucking guy was. I went to the bathroom after one of the times I watched Sonic 2 in theaters. And there's like this mom, and she has like 3 kids around her, and they're like hyperactively talking about this hedgehog at the end. And one of them goes, "Was that a girl hedgehog?" And the mom is like, I don't know. And they saw that I had a shirt with Shadow. It wasn't this one, it was a different one. And they were like, it's on the shirt. And I was like, yeah. And then I like looked at the mom, like, is it cool to talk to your kids? And the mom was like, yeah, basically. And I was like, you know that hedgehog at the end? And they went, yeah. And I was like, his name is Shadow. And they went, whoa! And then I went, he's a secret government hedgehog. Like, I wasn't even thinking, I was like, he's a secret government hedgehog, and he's like a secret, like, Sonic doesn't even know about him. And they screamed, they lost their goddamn minds, okay? Everyone loves the secret government hedgehog. They were just like, what? I should have been like, he has a gun. The mom's face would have just like went like that would have been the funniest thing I could have done. I didn't. Anyways, yeah, I was very hyped. I'll also say the shadow design in the post-credit scene looked very good. Like, it was just like a really strong design. Though it does make me wonder if there's a hypothetical version of Shadow that looks like Rat Boy. For the love of God, someone please send me a Rat Boy version of Shadow the Hedgehog. I need it so much. My bones need it. Thank you. So, Sonic 3 opens on Prison Island, and Shadow is there, and he's been kept in stasis for 50 years, and then he wakes up. And the fight choreography is fucking insane. It's so good. But it's also very familiar, because they actually took some of the fight choreography from Shadow the Hedgehog the game. And something that you might not know is that Jeff Fowler, who directed these movies, worked on this game. He animated on this game, so it's very cool to see it. I can think of like 2 instances where they mimic the opening cinematic. It's very good, very cool. I think everyone on Twitter already saw this. I'm not pointing out anything new, but it's very cool and I love to see it. Choreography is good. Shadow looks cool. He looks threatening. I love Shadow so much. So then it cuts to Sonic. He's with Tails and Knuckles and Cop Dad and Maddie. They're camping in the woods. And they set up a surprise party because today is Sonic's birthday. And they're like, wow, you know what, Sonic? This is the day that you came to Earth.
Today's the anniversary of the day you came to Earth, bud. It's your Earth Day birthday.
We're celebrating the anniversary of the day that you joined our world. Isn't this a great, happy, wholesome day? But while I was watching, I was sitting there like, isn't that the day his mom died? Like, violently? Maybe they don't know that. You know, maybe he never told them. After all, it's a traumatic event. Maybe he didn't want to go into that detail of it. Maybe he just said, I don't know, May 21st, yeah, that's the day I came to Earth, and didn't mention that Owl Mom died on that exact day. But you know what? Tails and Knuckles are there too. I guess they also heard that today was his birthday, and they're like, wow, we're so happy you walked on Earth this day. Today is such a great, happy day. Knuckles seems really happy to celebrate this. Isn't this the same day that Knuckles' entire family died? Oopsie! It's fine. It's not something the movie seems to care about. It's not something Knuckles seems to care about either, so I guess I shouldn't give a fuck, huh? But it's just like, oh man. Oh well, happy birthday, Sonic. I hope it's a good one. So then Cop Dad is walking around with Sonic, and Cop Dad has this football, and you know, it's very dad-coded imagery. We love to see it.
I've got a lot more than that, Dad.
And they come across this painting of Longclaw in Sonic's old cave. And Sonic is like, oh man, I hope she's proud of me. I wonder if I'm doing right by her. And Cop Dad says this.
I know she would, pal. Because even though you lost her at such a young age, you didn't let your pain change who you are.
And also something about you, Sonic, that I really love is that no matter how much pain you're in, you're always yourself. You're always who you are. You are all you are.
That's the thing about life, Sonic. It's all about the choices we make. As long as you remember to listen to your heart, you're gonna make the right choice when it matters the most.
And then Sonic very ominously says this.
I don't know what I'd do without you.
I'm sure that's not foreshadowing. I'm sure he'll be fine. I feel like I should say, and this is as good a time as any, that I had a bunch of like crackpot theories going into this movie. And one of my theories was that Cop Dad would get shot in the face by Shadow the Hedgehog. Stay tuned. So as Sonic is going, man, I'd be like a completely different character if hypothetically I didn't find people who loved me and I let my pain consume me. It like cuts to Shadow.
I'd probably be a totally different hedgehog.
Subtlety is for cowards. While they're around their campfire, Gunn actually shows up, goes up to Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails and is like, hey, your government needs you. Uncle Sam needs you to go to Japan and beat up this other hedgehog. And they say yes, and they get in a plane and they go over there. Before they jump out, they do say this line about cheap flights, which is identical to one in Sonic Adventure 2 before Sonic jumps out of a helicopter in that game.
Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? We're out of here.
Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies. I'm out of here.
They go down and they're face to face with Shadow the Hedgehog.
You're a colorful bunch.
Homophobia is alive and well. Honestly, Shadow, just call them a slur next time. Trust me, Shadow's allowed to say it. And then they have this conversation about how Sonic looks exactly like Shadow.
Why do you look like me?
I don't look like you. You look like me. Why do you look like me?
Of all the things to carry over from the games, this is one that baffles me because I don't think it even worked in the game. Granted, the plot of Sonic Adventure 2 is that Sonic is being mistaken for Shadow, but their designs just aren't similar enough, and also the game overuses this trope. Like, they also use it for Silver the Hedgehog, who looks nothing like Sonic.
Now I've got you, Sonic!
Hey!
It's about time I finally caught you again!
He has like this giant marijuana leaf on his head. I should note that I actually don't think that's a marijuana leaf. I've never seen anyone say this, so maybe I'm talking out my ass. But I think it might be a hand meant to like evoke telepathy because he has like psychokinesis and stuff. So maybe am I thinking about that right? And you might be thinking, well, maybe in this world they just perceive all hedgehogs as looking alike. But I should say they don't mistake Amy for any of them. She looks nothing like Sonic. Are you crazy? She has eyelashes. They don't see color in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, but they do see gender. But either way, they have this whole thing like, oh man, don't they look exactly the same? Do I think it works translated into this movie when you don't have any of this context? No. I mean, in the games, there's also a plot reason. I've mentioned this or alluded to it, but Sonic is being mistaken for Shadow throughout most of Sonic Adventure 2 by the cops, and we'll talk more about that later. But in the movie, there isn't a plot where Sonic is being mistaken for Shadow, so this feels like a weird detail to put in. They just both happen to be hedgehogs. And considering Amy Rose shows up at the end of this movie and no one goes, hey, it's Sonic! Like, you know what I mean? It feels out of place, but maybe that's just me. That's a nitpick. Who cares? It's a reference. Anyways, I don't have any more complaints because Shadow the Hedgehog gets a gun. He literally gets on a motorcycle after absolutely bodying Knuckles, and he picks up a gun off the floor because he was just battling against gun soldiers, and I guess they just threw him up in the air like graduation caps, so they're all over the place, and so he is holding a gun on a motorcycle. He Akira slides up a building. It's insane. Everything with Shadow in this movie is the coolest thing I've ever seen. You don't understand. However, I need to knock off points because it is a dinky little laser gun. I guess because it looks less violent or something. And B, he drops it like 5 minutes in. He doesn't even keep the gun. Fucking cowards. Jet Fowler is a coward. I don't mean that. I didn't expect him to get a gun at all until I saw the trailer. So frankly, I am delighted. I'm delighted by the cameo of the gun. The best character in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe. They have this fight. Sonic ends up completely handcuffed to a building. Shadow gets away. And then Sonic goes, we need to talk to someone who knows what's up. And so they talk to Olive Garden Guy.
Sonic, thank God you're all okay. I'm sure you have questions.
And Olive Garden Guy begins to give Shadow's backstory.
Shadow's story began a lot like yours, Sonic. But where you found family and friends on this planet, Shadow found only pain and loss.
Wow. He's just like Sasuke, for real, for real. The broad overview of the events that he gives is this. There was a terrible accident and some kind of explosion. The project leader of Project Shadow, who we know to be Gerald Robotnik, was blamed for the whole thing, and that he, Olive Garden Guy, had Shadow put into stasis indefinitely.
Too dangerous to be walking free, so I had him placed into stasis.
We don't really have time to ruminate on it, because then Eggman's egg bots show up from his egg sack and they explode the Chow Garden and they kill Olive Garden Guy?
monsters.
He goes to the big Olive Garden in the sky? With Olive Garden's dying breath, he takes this key card out and he hands it to Sonic.
Take this.
What is it?
A key to the most powerful weapon Gunn has ever built. You're the only one I trust to keep it safe.
And I'm sitting there going, why? The last interaction they had, he tased Sonic and put him in a cage. When did you start trusting him? For the last 2 movies, you've called him a dangerous alien. Now as he's dying, he's like, you're like a brother to me, Sonic the Hedgehog. After all, you went to Olive Garden. And when you're there, you're family. But also, something else about his backstory that doesn't add up. In Sonic 2, they specifically said that Gunn started in the events of Sonic 1 after San Francisco's events. Well, that's bullshit. They started over 50 years ago. And we know because Gunn imagery is all over the place in Shadow's backstory. So, you know, good consistency there, guys. It's fine. I'll also note that at the end of Sonic 2, Olive Garden guy, before the end credits scene with Shadow, acts surprised that they found the files on Project Shadow.
A file buried deep in our system and dating back over 50 years.
What was it?
Coordinates, sir.
To what?
A secret research facility. It was a black site, sir. Someone worked very hard to keep this hidden.
My God.
Dude, they're your files. You know about you put him in the tube. You're the one who put him in the sleep tube for 50 years. This is insane. Anyways, Shadow is wandering around this old gun base and he's remembering Maria. And we get our first imagery of Maria. Whereas the first game was made in the early 2000s when 50 years ago would have been in the 50s. This movie obviously takes place in 2024. In fact, it's established in one of the shots there. Which means that this Maria has a 1970s aesthetic that I actually love. I really like this design. I like Maria in this. I don't think I'm being unpopular when I say that Maria, I think, played out very well in this story. They give us this story of her bonding with Shadow, of her causing mischief around the base. One might say she's a little bit too, quirky or something, but, it's fine. Especially because I don't think that Games Maria would really work in this context. I love Games Maria, especially in Sonic X Shadow Generations. I think Maria is great and I think she serves a good purpose in there. But also, until recently with Sonic X Shadow Generations, the only character trait that the games really emphasized is how kind she was and how much she wanted the world to be a better place. Frankly, the way that Sonic Adventure 2 uses Maria reduces her to not much more than a sad, sick white girl. What I mean is, Maria's illness and death is used to further develop Shadow's story. I'm not saying that Maria is a bad character, because in the context of the games aren't about Maria. The game's about Shadow. Shadow the Hedgehog, who saw Maria get gunned down by cops in space, and now he's a teensy bit fucked up about it. And don't get me wrong, Maria does a great job of getting gunned down by cops in space, and she really delivers on that front. But Sonic 3 is about a lot more, and if you're gonna have a character on screen, you're probably going to want to give her some more personality. Something else I should note about this adaptation choice, though, is that while they did give Maria more personality and more things to do on screen outside of, dying, there are things I wish they'd kept. I'm not going to pretend that Maria's illness and disability is handled well in the games. Like I said, the game seems to use it like a plot device to move Shadow's story forward. But that was still representation of a disabled character. Representation that they removed for the movie. I like that movie Maria is mischievous. I like that movie Maria has a sense of humor. But she can be mischievous and have a sense of humor and have a fleshed out personality and also still be disabled. There was no reason to remove that representation. There are ways to write a disabled character without completely reducing them to tragedy. And while I don't think that the games necessarily succeed at doing so, I'm still disappointed with the movie's solution to completely write out the disability. I'm disappointed with what was lost in the translation. Still, the montage was fun. Dancing with Shadow and roller skating with Shadow, and it's very cute. I love this scene so much. And then they're watching this movie about alien freaks attacking, and he goes, "Oh my god, a freak. And she sees that he's upset, and so she takes him outside and they look at the stars. And she's just like, what planet do you think you come from? And he's like, well, I don't really know anything about myself. Oh yeah, by the way, in the movies, I didn't mention this, they changed him being, like, created by Gerald Robotnik, and instead he shows up on an asteroid or something. That's fine. You know, if you're not going to do the Black Doom arc, if you're not going to do the arc about him being created to cure Maria's disease like she has in the games, then I think that's totally fine, especially since we've established that Sonic and friends are aliens from another planet / dimension / whatever. So I honestly don't mind the change, and I'm glad that they kept it consistent with the lore that they have. But anyways, Maria's looking at the stars, and she says something like,
my grandfather says it can take hundreds of years for the light of a star to reach Earth. And by the time we see it, the star might not even exist anymore.
And Shadow's like, wow, the light shines even after the star is gone. Even after the star is dead. Even after the star has been gunned down by the space police. And then Shadow's like, I don't know anything about myself.
The way the scientists look at me, I can tell they're afraid. Like I'm the horrible thing from that movie we watched. I don't know what I am.
And Maria goes, it doesn't matter where you come from, because I know who you are. You're my friend. And even beyond that, you decide who you are. One might say, you are all you are. And then Shadow very ominously says,
I don't know what I'd do without you.
Jeez, Maria, I don't know what I would do without you. If anything happened to you, I guess I'd just have to fucking kill everyone. I guess I wouldn't have a choice. Thank God you're not gonna die anytime soon. So, let's see. Tails, Knuckles, Sonic, they all split up. They all get absolutely bodied by Shadow. Before that, we do have the scene with Stone and Tails that I thought was really funny.
That's what makes the team so special. That and the fact we're best friends.
You are.
Well, yeah, just like you and Eggman, right?
Yeah, of course, yes. Me and the doctor, best of friends. It's definitely what we are.
I love being queer-baited by these stupid old men. I saw someone somewhere on Twitter complain about the movie's queer-baiting. Listen, I'm fine with it. I think, honestly, we should bring queer-baiting back. If they were confirmed to be gay lovers, one of two things would happen. Either leftists would get angry that it's a bad queer representation, or right-wing grifters would be mad that they've suddenly gone woke in the Sonic movie. Or some combination of both, and frankly, I'm not able to handle either. You guys don't get to complain about bad representation. It's not representation at all. Now draw your yaoi fan art and shut up. We have a scene where Eggman trauma dumps to Sonic, and he says this.
I have no parents, no aunts, no uncles, and something about my attitude renders me undesirable to all possible genders.
Wow, diversity win. He's pansexual. Also diversity win. I guess Agent Stone is agender. And then, ultimately, we see Gerald Robotnik is alive. So this is a big departure from the game series, where Gerald Robotnik was not only killed years ago, but acts very different from this Jim Carrey-ified Gerald Robotnik. This Gerald is evil, but he's also, like, very silly, very cartoonish. Gerald in the games is a sad old man who gets killed by a firing squad. They are not the same. I've been racking my brain as to why they made this change. Maybe they just wanted to give Jim Carrey some more to do. After all, he's, like, been threatening to leave after every movie because he typically doesn't do sequels. But, you know, they wanted to come back and maybe he wanted to do something like this. Maybe they just felt because it's such a serious story that they should have some more comic relief and they thought Gerald would be the best thing here. Maybe they wanted to have a twist villain. After all, by the end of the movie, Gerald kind of does a heel turn, but he acts so evil throughout the beginning of the movie and the middle of the movie that, you know, the heel turn isn't really a surprise. He's just slightly less silly towards the end. I don't really know what to make of it. I have some more thoughts, but let's put a pin in that and come back to it later. Eventually it cuts to Maddie and Cop Dad, and they're just like, I don't know, baking bread and doing puzzles. He's making puppets now. Sure. They agree to help Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails break into gun headquarters in London interesting and get the second key card before Shadow, Eggman, and Gerald Robotnik can get it. Maddie raises an interesting point here.
It sounds like this plan would work a heck of a lot better if Sonic used the Master Emerald to go Golden God mode to get the key.
Knuckles is like, hey, this is really serious to me. This is my duty to protect this emerald. We're not fucking doing that. We're not using the Master Emerald to gain power. In fact, this is the lesson we learned in the last movie, supposedly.
As guardian of the Master Emerald, anyone who tries to take it away for any reason will become a sworn enemy.
And, Maddie goes, okay, fine. And you know what? We respect that that's the right call at this point in the film. For now. It cuts to London, where Maddie and Tom have used, this, hologram mask to disguise as Randall and his wife, Rachel. I forgot they got married for a bit there, and then I was like, oh yeah, I guess there is a reason for him to bring his wife. They also have this, baffling joke.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Tom, your wife is so hot. Why are you acting like this? Fucking cop dad. Whatever. The joke it makes no... Tika Sumpter is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's gorgeous. She's a gorgeous actress. So replacing her with another actress. Tom, how are you fumbling this? Is the joke just oh man, other women are hot? What's happening? What are you doing, Tom? And also they have this joke with the puppet, and the puppet is
I told him to get rid of you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I feel like they heard the complaints that the couple feels like they have no marriage chemistry, and so they snuck in a couple of boomer humor, I hate my wife jokes. Anyways, it cuts to a scene where Shadow loves Latinas, so I'm fine. This movie's good again.
Gabriella should kill them both. She's not a prize to be won.
Eggman and Robotnik, by the way, this whole time have been bonding, and Agent Stone has been jealous. He's been third-wheeling Eggman and Robotnik. It's just such a strange choice that I think actually works. Him sadly looking back at them holding the VR headset it's just so funny to me. I love to see it. But he's excluded while they go down in the basement of gun headquarters and do this full 2-minute dance scene. It's fine. It's just a lot of runtime dedicated to this scene. And I personally didn't find it that funny. I thought it was a lot of Jim Carreying all over the place. And like I said, it's an acquired taste. If that's something you love, then you're gonna love it. I personally think it could have been trimmed just a tad bit. I thought it was impressive, whatever they did with the body doubles to do this with a green screen and 2 Jim Carreys. I was like, oh man, that's impressive. But it wasn't that impressive. They could have cut it. That's all. They get in, and then Sonic follows after them. And then they get stuck in this gravity room where the green tiles go up and the red tiles go down, and I think it's echoing some game mechanics. This scene is full of a bunch of inexplicable logic mistakes. I hope that this whole time I haven't just been harping on plot holes and being plot hole ding, cinema sin, because I don't really care about that. But there's a lot in this one scene. They never explain how Tails was arrested in this scene. They never explain how Knuckles was able to go through the force field, unless they did and I missed it. They don't actually shoot at Knuckles when they're fire.
Open fire!
Knuckles, turn this stuff off! Hurry!
On it!
I'll put a pin in that. Knuckles was able to float above he was in zero gravity over red tiles, which they established suck things down, which was what the whole danger of the scene was when those spikes were coming down on Cop Dad and Maddie. Also, why didn't they send Shadow in to get the key card? Why did Gerald and Eggman go, no, we got it, kid, don't worry. What? He is perfectly suited to go in and get it and sneak in past the lasers. Make it make sense. Whatever. It doesn't bother me, but I notice it. I really notice it. There are things like this entire movie, and I could be so annoying if I wanted to. So Cop Dad disguises himself as Olive Garden guy, and he's like, give me the key card. And she's like, I thought you were... He's like, what? Did you think I was dead? And I'm like, Yeah, she did think you were dead. She was there when you died. Well, whatever, it's fine. She gives him the card. He's holding the card. He's disguised as Olive Garden guy. They do this thing where they like show us it's Tom, just in case we got confused. I don't know how anyone would be confused, but then they show him turning back into Agent Walters, Commander Walters, Olive Garden guy, before Shadow shows up, and he sees
Commander Walters.
And he punches him into a coma.
No, wait.
What?
So Tom has been punched into a coma. He's knocked out on the floor. I will say Ben Schwartz does a good job at this scene. I almost care.
Tom! Tom, what happened? Speak to me, come on.
I didn't care because I think I was so hyped up on the energy of, oh my god, Shadow killed Condad, that I didn't give a fuck about Sonic's reaction. That's really fucked up to say, but here we are. Meanwhile, Shadow, Eggman, and Gerald Robotnik escape to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism.
Space!
Agent Stone calls him up like, hey, I think he might be trying to destroy the world, and Eggman is like, how fucking dare you? We are divorced. We are broken up. And look at Agent Stone in this scene. He just crawled out of the ocean. This poor, pathetic sub is left on the shore like a wet kitten. It's so sad to see. Then we have one of my favorite scenes of the movie where Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails are outside and like, Tom has just been taken to the hospital. So at this point, we know he's gonna be fine. It's fine. Sonic is like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna use the Master Emerald. And Knuckles is like, the fuck you are? No, we agreed.
The Emerald must never be wielded for vengeance.
And Sonic's like, actually, fuck you. I'm going to use it.
I'm not asking you twice, Knuckles. Where is the Master Emerald?
Sonic, kindly, can you and your mother stop asking the Echidnas for their ancient artifact? Please, let them take it. Stop forcing them to give you the artifact. For the love of God, it's making me so uncomfortable.
You are in no condition to make decisions right now.
I know you're upset about Tom. We all are.
Where is it?
And then Knuckles and Sonic are about to fight, and Knuckles is like, you know what? We made a vow to trust each other, and you're not doing that right now, but I'm gonna do it. So fine, take it. Whatever. Also, I checked the vow that they made in Sonic 2. They did not vow to trust each other. I'm just saying. It feels like a nitpick, but honestly, given how much I don't want Sonic to take this emerald now that Knuckles has made it very clear that he's not comfortable with it, I want them to point this out. I want someone to go, no, he shouldn't be taking this, but whatever. Sonic takes the Master Emerald. I want to be mad. However, Super Sonic and the fight that follows is really fucking cool. We'll get there in a second. It's so cool, so I'm not even that mad. But ooh, if it was even like a little bit less cool, I would be so angry. Meanwhile, we are shown this flashback from Shadow's perspective of what really happened to Maria. So, Robotnik grabs Maria and Shadow. He is running back out of the Ark. He is escaping with them and he is shouting,
They want to take Shadow away from us, Maria!
And they're trying to get out, and before they can get out, a row of soldiers with laser guns show up, and one of them is about to shoot at Maria, and then Olive Garden guy, young Olive Garden guy's youth Sona, runs up to him and goes, no, those are children, and wrestles the gun away.
Hey! What are you doing? Those are children! We've got our orders! Stand down!
But instead of shooting Maria head on, it actually shoots a barrel of like explosive liquid that's 10 feet to the right of Maria. It explodes and Maria dies. This is different than the games, where Maria is just shot point blank in the back with a gun. I couldn't tell you if you put a gun to my head why exactly they made this change. Hell, I couldn't tell you if you aimed a gun 10 feet away from my head at an explosive barrel. But if I had to guess... uh-oh, it's military propaganda and copaganda. Oopsie-daisy! Maria's death is such a deliberate choice, and once you begin to see what I suspect to be the reason behind it, you begin to see it everywhere in this movie, but especially in Sonic 3. This entire series has this intense neutering of the armed forces and of the police. We're gonna focus on gun for the most part, but like I mentioned in Sonic 2, like their guns are mostly replaced. They're not even shooting with real guns in this movie. When they aim at Sonic and friends, which by the way they don't do, like I said, they don't shoot Knuckles directly, it's a laser gun, which is a common bit of censorship used in movies to kind of like lighten how intense seeing an actual military gun being fired might be. Even in this movie against an enemy like Shadow, they're not shooting directly. It's not just that they have bad aim, it's that if they did shoot him directly, we might feel bad about that because we, the audience, love Shadow the Hedgehog. Most of the people watching this movie are Sonic fans at this point. We're obsessed! One might say that it doesn't even matter how she dies because she's still dead at the end. Whether it's an exploding barrel or, a gunshot to the back, what difference does it make? Either way, Maria is dead. And yeah, that might be true, but I think it does make a difference in the nuances of the story. Seeing the cold-blooded murder of one of his best friends in front of him is a big part of Shadow's motivations. There is no ambiguity in the games. There is no chance of it being an accident. There is no good, kind-hearted gun agent going, no, don't do it, they're children. All of the gun agents are trying to kill them, Maria included, even though she's done nothing wrong. The truth is that the Sonic games have a very nuanced relationship to the concept of law enforcement and to gun. In Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic is evading the police. Throughout all of Speed Highway, he is absolutely dunking on the cops, dunking on the speedsters. He doesn't give a fuck. In Sonic Adventure 2, the game begins with Sonic jumping out of a gun helicopter and being chased by the cops.
The Hedgehog is gone. He's taken out everyone aboard. And
what's wrong?
What in the
Come
world?
here. Over.
Because he's been wrongfully profiled as another hedgehog. They look at him and they think he's Shadow. Guys! He gets wrongfully imprisoned by the police. Gun are not the good guys in these games. They're named Gun. The only blue life that matters in the Sonic the Hedgehog games is Sonic the Hedgehog. In Shadow the Hedgehog's arc, Gun are the ones who commissioned Jared Robotnik to create the ultimate life form for them as a super weapon. And yes, I did point out that Gun headquarters here are in London, and that is very strange because Gun in the games is the United States military and police system. They are United States law enforcement. Like I said, the United Federation is the US. The president is a character in Shadow the Hedgehog. He lives in the White House. He has a picture of Sonic and Shadow on his desk, like they're old friends. In City Escape, like we said, San Francisco is the city, and they're the ones you escape. And the movie puts this degree of separation between the United States and Gun. The movie decides to have them based in London. That's interesting to me. That is so interesting to me. When Gun has Robotnik make them Shadow the Hedgehog, once it starts being too expensive and too dangerous, and they begin to fear that it might not be in their best interest to keep Shadow around, they send officers up to kill everybody on the Space Colony Ark. They kill Maria for no good reason. In fact, it seems to be more over budgeting and covering their asses than anything. And you might be going, well, this is a children's movie series, so they don't want to have Maria get shot in front of the kids. Even if you don't want to show a bullet, entering and leaving Maria's lifeless body, we already had a death scene in this movie. They killed Olive Garden guy in front of us. He died on screen. And I will note, Sonic Adventure 2 is rated E for everyone, but I'll also say that Paramount has a vested interest in not showing cops and military officers as the bad guys of a story, because that might not be popular among conservative audiences. Japan, however, has no qualms about it. Have any of you guys seen Detective Conan or Kaito Kid? Whenever there is a cop from the United States or Europe, they are always trigger-happy gun nuts. Japan is always happy to dunk on our police being overly violent. They do it all the time, and these games are no exception. Hell, the movie goes out of its way to kind of redeem Olive Garden guy. It's so weird. He's being painted as this kind-hearted hero up against the black-hearted evil. He's grappling with the gun like, no, don't do it. Don't shoot Shadow the Hedgehog's emotional support white girl. When she's here, she's family. I mean, Olive Garden guy was complicit in all of this. Think about what he says when he's explaining Shadow's backstory to Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails.
A terrible accident destroyed the lab.
He conveniently leaves out whose fault the accident was.
The project leader was blamed for the incident and imprisoned.
Again, leaving out that it wasn't actually Jared Robotnik's fault, and in fact it was Gunn's fault.
The program canceled. Shadow was a loose end no one knew how to deal with. So I had him placed into stasis. Indefinitely.
While he is wrestling the gun away from that soldier, he says those are children. Children. Meaning he considers Shadow to be a child, and he had a child who did nothing wrong put into stasis. Shadow even says in a previous scene that he spent the last 50 years reliving his trauma, and Olive Garden guy is the one who puts him in the trauma juice. No wonder Shadow tried to kill him the second he saw him. Come on.
Commander Walters.
And once you see how they reduce the brutality of the military and law enforcement in the Maria scene, you see it throughout the entire movie. Gerald Robotnik is alive and has not been killed via firing squad from gun for this reason. Knuckles is not shot directly for this reason. Shadow's gun, when he gets on the motorcycle, is a laser gun. For this reason. The echoes of this choice emanate throughout the entire movie franchise. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles have no qualms about joining Gun, taking up their offer, going to Japan, and fighting Shadow. They don't even ask any questions about why they're fighting Shadow or what it is that Shadow has done to deserve this. Even though throughout the last two movies, Sonic has no reason to trust Gun. The movie wants you to sympathize with Shadow. I mean, he's just walking down the street, minding his business, doing nothing, when Gun shows up and starts drawing weapons on him.
Why won't you leave me alone? Take him down!
So the movie wants us to simultaneously feel for Shadow because he's being victimized here, but also doesn't want us to focus on who it is that's victimizing him. One might comment, like, maybe the movie is just trying to be subtle about its treatment of the government. Maybe the movie also agrees that Gun is the bad guy, but they want to, like, pull back so that it's not so in your face. But why? This movie is not afraid to be in your face about any of its themes. It never has been. These are the least subtle movies on God's green earth.
I don't know what I'd do without you. Probably be a totally different hedgehog.
Why are they being subtle now? Why do they want us to have nuance now? Gun has more nuance applied to it when it comes to whether or not it's all bad and inherently violent, or whether or not there are good and bad members of the group, than the Echidna tribe gets. And you know what? I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like the Sonic games are some kind of leftist anti-cop paradise, because that's not the case. Rouge the Bat and Shadow work with Gun in Sonic 06 and in subsequent games. But even these games from like 20 years ago are willing to be more brave and more clear in who we should be rallying against, who is in power, and who our heroes should want to be held accountable. If you are making a movie out of Shadow the Hedgehog story, these are the themes you are working with. You don't need to have these themes in your movie, I guess, but these were part of what made Shadow's story so powerful. This is what made Shadow's story resonate so much with the young teenage audience. Shadow the Hedgehog terraformed my brain and transed my gender. So yeah, I feel a certain way seeing this movie not stay true to that. And I think it makes it a weaker movie overall because of this. Because if you're going to adapt Shadow's story and Shadow's grief and Shadow's lesson about moving on from this and growing from this and living and learning from this, what's the point if you're gonna leave such a big part of it out? I'm not surprised. Like, I'm not brand new. I know what these movies are. Again, Cop Dad is right there. But I am disappointed. Anyways, cut to space. Shadow is running around. They're activating the space colony arc. It's gonna go wild. They're gonna explode the Earth. And Eggman is like, oh man, shit, it looks like you're gonna explode the Earth. And Gerald is like, actually, I am going to do that.
What?
And then it starts to set in that this is not just like a fun, silly villain, and that Gerald instead is on a murder-suicide mission. So I'm gonna admit that this fell flat a bit for me. I think by making the movie character so silly, and then continuing to have him kind of be silly even after the reveal, like this kind of like exposure to the dark side of his motivations, it doesn't really work, you know? I know what they're trying to go for because I played the games, which really did it very well. But he still seems like such a silly villain after this reveal. But we do have this like ice cold line where he looks at Eggman and he's like,
Oh, Ivo. You're no Maria.
I heard 2 people in the theater at that moment go, oh damn. And like, same, I get it. Yeah, oh damn, that's a good line. I wish they carried through this energy. And then Super Sonic shows up and he's ready to fight Shadow. They're fighting each other in space. Again, this fight scene is insane. They crash on Earth and then Shadow goes super. And then it's Super Sonic versus Super Shadow. The shit is wild. It's a good fight. It's a really good... These movies really do fight scenes well. I thought it was really good. I will say at this one point in the fight, they stop. They're in these ruins and...
Why are you alone? Where are your friends? What kind of hero abandons his friends to pursue revenge? And here I thought you cared for them. Especially the one, what's his name? Tom.
And then Sonic is like, get his name out of your mouth. And then they go to the moon and continue fighting. If you care about Tom, I'm sure that moment hits. If you don't care about Tom, at least it's funny. Comparing Tom to Maria, which like they do a couple times, feels sacrilege, but whatever. But then they're on the moon and Sonic is super and Shadow is not. He has had the super beat out of him. And Sonic is like, oh man, he's like about to kill him. And Shadow's like, do it. Kill me. I don't give a fuck.
Ahead. Finish it. What are you waiting for? Do it.
And then Sonic doesn't do it because he remembers the scene that he had with Tom earlier when Tom was like, man, you didn't let your pain change you into someone you weren't.
This is not who I am.
What are you doing?
And then the sun comes up and Shadow is reminded of what Maria said.
The light shines even though the star is gone.
And I knew this was coming. It was so obvious. But I still felt something because I'm mentally ill about this hedgehog. And he's just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fight. And Sonic's like, you know what? I'm gonna fight with you, man. And then they turn super. And then live and learn, please! Oh my god! Oh, it's like the best thing. I'm just happy Live and Learn was there. It was unclear if Live and Learn was gonna be in the movie. I don't think it was in the marketing. At least I don't remember it being there. And you hear some like instrumental versions of it. Like I know you hear like an acoustic version of it early in the beginning. You know, like there's a few like sound cues and music cues that mimic Live and Learn, especially around Shadow. But oh my god, when it plays, The crowd goes wild. Everyone loses their goddamn mind. It's like the best thing ever. Like, I know that Live and Learn is just like nostalgia bait. Yes, I know it's a corporate recreation of the art that I loved in my youth, designed in a lab to make me happy and enjoy the thing I'm looking at. But the thing is, it's working. I'm happy and enjoying the thing I'm looking at. The sequence plays. Live and Learn is blaring. They're doing it. They're fighting against the Ark. And then...
I will not try to stop my elders.
The movie cuts to Jim Carrey spanking Jim Carrey. This movie is obsessed with Jim Carrey. And I love his performance. I think he does a really good job of what he does. Like I said, it's not like catered towards me and my taste. But guys... if giving him double roles like this and these really long sequences to do is what you need to do to keep him around, maybe we don't need him as much because he just interrupted Live and Learn. I don't know why they did that. I don't know the motivation here. Maybe we don't need Jim Carrey. Also, Jim Carrey is an anti-vaxxer. Like, a guy, like, we could pick better people. He, like, kissed someone against their will on stage, like, 20 years ago. We can find another actor. We could do that. We have the power. Other actors exist. Cutting to Jim Carrey, even if you think this spanking scene is really funny, which I don't, but if you do, hypothetically, but why would you cut to it now? Why would you cut to it in the middle of this really earnest, cool part of the film where Live and Learn is playing and they're unapologetically doing Sonic Adventure 2? Why would you interrupt that? Did they have a time limit of how much of the song they were allowed to play? What is going on? I wonder if the movie fears earnestness. Like if they're afraid of letting us sit in this melodrama. Because, Shadow's story is really melodramatic, and the way Sonic and Shadow team up is very melodramatic, and I mean that in a good way. I love melodrama. But I don't think this movie loves melodrama. If you're going to translate Sonic Adventure 2 into the big screen, the melodrama and the taking the subject matter seriously needs to be packaged in there. Shadow's edge and drama is exaggerated so earnestly. It's like drag, in that, it's an art form. It's very hard to make Shadow the Hedgehog work, but when it works, it really works. And I can't help but wonder if the team at Paramount, or maybe a film editor who just had a lot of Jim Carrey footage and needed to put it somewhere, I can't help but wonder if someone there was afraid of having all of this melodrama and get all of this edge in there, and they felt the need to cut in more comic relief slapstick humor. Did they see this moment and they think, that's a bit much, isn't it? We should cut it down a bit. Because, no, you shouldn't have. You should have connected this scene with the orchestral version of Live and Learn playing in the next Sonic and Shadow scene.
Recycle some tin cans.
Just trying to keep up.
They should have been one unit. If you can only play 15 seconds of the real Live and Learn, then fine, have it meld into this orchestral version. Have this be one scene. That's the only way it works. Splitting it up like this is so stupid. I don't know why they did this. It makes me so angry. That's the thing that the Sonic games aren't afraid of. They're not afraid of telling the stories that they tell. Now granted, the stories they tell aren't always good. Trust me, I know. But they go in fearlessly. And there's power in that. Whatever. After Live and Learn, like, the rest of the movie, it's gone in an instant, basically. Jared Robotnik dies. He gets killed by, like, the giant fly zapper in the sky. Like I said, in the games, he gets killed via firing squad. Wild shit. Sonic and Shadow block the giant laser about to kill the Earth and they steer it away. They don't have the Bio-Lizard fight here. It would be cool, but again, because Shadow wasn't engineered in a lab, they don't have a prototype Shadow for them to fight, so it makes sense. But Still, like, a boss fight like that would have been rad. But still, this is cool. They're stopping the laser, and then Eggman, Tails, and Knuckles are pushing the laser out, and...
I did it! I did it!
They piss on the moon. I did it. I did the reference. But then Sonic is plummeting down to Earth. He actually turned normal before Shadow did. Put a pin in that. He's plummeting down. Tails goes down and chases him with a ring, trying to save his life. And then Super Shadow goes up to Eggman and he's like, okay, what's going on? And Eggman is like, this whole place is gonna explode. Shadow's like, I'll take Bikini Bottom and I'll push it somewhere else. You do what you can. And Eggman does what he can. And while he does, he has this moment.
This is Dr. Ivo Robotnik, dedicating my final live stream to one very special henchman. Agent Stone, you were more than a sycophant to me. You were a sickle friend.
And then he explodes. F. And Shadow also, in theory, explodes in this moment. But, you know, we all know how Sonic Adventure 2 ends. This is, I think, the third fake-out death or fake-out ending that we've given Eggman. At the end of these movies, he's always, like, either on a different dimension or presumed dead. It's wild. They can't do this to Stone again, okay? He literally says at one point, like, no, I can't lose you again.
I already lost you once. Unsubscribed, blocked, and reported. I can't lose you again.
You can't make him lose him again and then bring Eggman back. And I know they're probably going to try to bring Eggman back, but oh my god, you're putting Agent Stone through the ringer. And I'll say it, they keep killing Eggman because they don't know if Jim Carrey will be back. You know, maybe he's going to quit. Or maybe he'll die of COVID. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I don't want anything bad to happen to Jim Carrey. I'm just saying he's not vaccinated. So after this scene, Knuckles actually goes in, saves Tails and Sonic. They land on Earth. And then they, like, have this moment where Knuckles is, like, mad at Sonic, but he basically forgives him. And do they still have the Master Emerald? Because the Master Emerald shows up when you go back into, like, your normal form after you've turned super. But Sonic turned normal before Shadow. Does Shadow have the Master Emerald? Is the Master Emerald in space? Did the Master Emerald explode? Does Eggman have the Master Emerald? There's like a million questions that we need to address. But at the end of the movie, we don't know where the Master Emerald is, and the movie doesn't seem to give a fuck. I will say that after this big fight, something that I was waiting for the movie to do was to demonstrate somehow that taking the Master Emerald, even though Knuckles and Tails were against it, was the wrong choice. After all, Knuckles stood his ground. He was like, this is a bad decision. You're not thinking straight. The whole lesson of movie 2 that movie 2 wants you to walk away with, that the Echidnas were wrong because they wanted to use the emerald for power, and in fact the emerald should not be used for that. According to the owls, it should be locked away. Sonic ignored that. He used it for power. And you might argue he needed the emerald to go to space, but he didn't. Like, Tails and Knuckles showed up with one of their rings. He could have just taken a ring up on the Ark and they could have fought all the Eggmen and also Shadow in the Space Colony Ark. But they don't show that. And in fact, they seem to imply that the only way that he could have fought Shadow and won was with supersonic energy. But then they also made Shadow super for that fight, so they were fighting on even ground. So maybe Sonic could have just fought and won if he was normal Sonic. I don't know. He was just kind of angry. Maybe if he was angry enough, he could have won? Are they implying that when they're at normal power levels, Shadow is stronger than Sonic, but when they're at super levels, Sonic is stronger for some reason? What are they getting at? The movie has this moral code when it comes to the Master Emerald and when it comes to power. Chasing power for power's sake or for revenge or for violence is wrong. They show us that lesson again and again. But in this case, Sonic is never proven wrong. Aside from maybe peeving Knuckles off a bit at the end, Sonic was right. He needed it. He needed to defeat Shadow. He needed Shadow to have his come to Jesus moment and realize that he shouldn't kill everyone on Earth. There are things that they could have done. They could have made it so that the reason why the Ark exploded in particular was because the Master Emerald was brought up there, showing, oh man, Sonic, you shouldn't have done that, that's wrong. Maybe you could have had the Master Emerald end up in the wrong hands for a minute. Aw man, Knuckles was right, you shouldn't have taken it up there. But the movie doesn't do anything like this. And maybe they didn't have any time for it. But I know where they could have cut 2 minutes. Either the lesson of Sonic 2 stands and absolute power corrupts absolutely, or absolute power is fine as long as the right person is wielding it. And given my reading of the Echidna and Owl subplot of Sonic 2, I think the movies are aiming for the first of those lessons and is accidentally hitting the second one. Movie ends with Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. They're back with Cop Dad and Maddie. Cop Dad is alive. He broke his arm somehow. His arm wasn't touched, but he broke his arm. He's okay though. It's fine. Can you imagine if Shadow was adopted by Cop Dad at the end of this movie? That would be insane. That would be so funny. I'm so glad that didn't happen, but can you imagine if they just collect more furry little guys and Shadow is up next? He's just their next new emo son. So we have one post-credit scene with Metal Sonic and Amy, which is interesting because Metal Sonic is created by Eggman, so if Eggman is dead, then who made Metal Sonic? Maybe Agent Stone kind of like goes mad after he finds out that Eggman is gone. Maybe he's unhinged now. I don't know. Maybe there's a new villain. Maybe they play around with it. Maybe the government made a Metal Sonic and then Metal Sonic is like, actually I'm sentient now and it's a story about AI. But you know, who knows? And then of course, Amy shows up. We're hype about it. I think her design is very cute. I'm excited to see it. And in the second post-credit scene, of course, we see Shadow picking up his limiter rings. The crowd goes wild. So now that's how Sonic 3 ended. And how do I feel about it? Well, it came out a week ago and I've seen it 3 times. I enjoyed it. I love it. Frankly, they did the Sonic Adventure 2 pose at one point in the movie and then again in the end credits, and I screamed both times. I just went, ah! I couldn't help it. It was amazing. I was losing my fucking mind. Oh my god. So yeah, like 10 out of 10. I know I named every single flaw that I could, but 10 out of 10 for that alone. I'm probably gonna watch it a 4th time in January. But now, we gotta think about Sonic 4. You know, what could I possibly want going in? Well, for one thing, anything more from Knuckles. I just want more Knuckles. And by that, I mean more of Knuckles' character and less his comic relief moments. I mean, Knuckles is great in Sonic 3, but his strongest scene, in my opinion, is the fight with Sonic. That fight with Sonic when Tails is like getting in between them and mediating and Knuckles is like, I will end your fucking life if you try to get my emerald. And Sonic is like, good, fucking try it, bitch. That is the best scene. That is such a good scene because I love seeing these characters act like characters that know each other and less like archetypes. Like, we get it. Tails is very cute and he's the tech whiz guy. We get it. Knuckles is a warrior and a bit out of touch with the society on this planet. But I would like to see more. More than I've dishonored my marshmallow. I feel like the movies can really flex their writing here, and they haven't yet. A lot of the weight of Knuckles' character in Sonic 2 isn't even brought up in Sonic 3. So I don't know where they're gonna go in Sonic 4. I'm excited to see it though. I don't know if they're gonna have Shadow show up in movie 4. If they do, I hope it's like a surprise. I hope he just shows up in the middle of a battle. Oh, that'd be so cool. I love Shadow the Hedgehog so much. But I really hope that he shows up. Because even if Cop Dad and Maddie didn't adopt him, I'm glad he's here. And when you're here, you're family. So Jared Robotnik is trying to create the ultimate life form because he wants to cure Maria's illness because she has this neuroimmune disorder in her brain. So he's trying to do that and he at first attempts it with a salamander. The salamander keeps growing and it keeps growing and it's always in agony. And the government is like, hey, this salamander is always in agony. That doesn't seem to be working. And he's like, uh-oh, I'm not supposed to have a giant salamander that's always in agony. So he's like, okay, maybe I'll try again. And he goes to the ruins where the Echidnas used to be, and he sees the mural with Supersonic on it, and he's like, okay, so I'm gonna make Shadow. I'm gonna make him look like this. Maybe the problem was I started with a salamander instead of making it look like a hedgehog. But it works. But it only really works because he gets some DNA from Black Doom. Black Doom is like this Emperor of the Black Arms who are like this species of aliens that are going to invade in 50 years, and that's actually part of the deal. He gives Jared Robotnik some of his DNA. And he's like, hey, take this DNA, your ultimate life form will be real, and it'll live, and it won't grow super big and always be in agony like the salamander that you fucked up. But then Black Doom is like, okay, but listen, in 50 years, when I show up again, because they're on this comet that comes back every 50 years, and he's like, in 50 years when I show up again, I need you to give me back my, my DNA boy, my son, basically. So Shadow the Hedgehog has two dads. One is Jared Robotnik and one is this guy, the devil from the Bible. And Jared Robotnik is like, yeah, I'll absolutely do that. I'll let you have your boy. That's why the Space Colony arc has that laser beam in it. He made the laser beam to shoot down the comet when it shows up in 50 years. He was like preparing for it. He's like, I'll take your DNA, I'll make my ultimate life form, I'll cure Maria's illness, and then I'm gonna shoot down your comet so I don't even need to destroy the Earth. Well, then what happens is that the government is like, hey, this hedgehog project is really weird and really dangerous. We're kind of fucking over it. So we're gonna send the cops to kill everyone. And so they send the police to go to space and kill Maria. And then Robotnik is like, actually, you just killed my granddaughter? So actually, I'm gonna kill you all. Actually, remember that space laser, the one that was gonna shoot the black comet out of the sky and save everyone? What if instead I aimed it at Earth and killed all of you? Huh? What if I did that? What if I did that? What if I was in the mood to do that? And then they shoot him 50 times. And then Shadow wakes up, and Shadow's last memory is Maria getting shot, which is, upsetting. And he doesn't like quite remember everything she says. I think he's like, oh man, Maria, what were her last words? And her last words were like, Shadow, I need you to remember to. And then like he like goes blank after that. He doesn't remember. But then later on in the game, after he's gonna kill everyone with the super laser, I think it's Amy. She shows up and she's like, well, what would Maria want? What did Maria say? He remembers, and Maria was like, Shadow, remember to not kill everybody. Make sure everyone lives super long, happy lives. And he goes, fuck!